viewers, thanks for joining us here on this Sunday edition of the Urban Debate. I'm Afrida Rahman Ali. Well, 25 people have died today in the city of Mumbai owing to rain-related incidents. Two major incidents have happened, one in Chimbor, the other in Vikhroli. Children are among those who have died. Just like the last incident, barely a month after the incident of 10th of June in Malad, where again children also died. 12 people lost their lives in that incident. The Bombay High Court came down heavily on the state government, on the BMC in particular, questioning what is being done about these illegal structures that give way every monsoon. Now, what is concerning, viewers, is that this is happening every year, and each time it seems as if we care less and less. Are we in a situation now where the system is becoming numb to this pathetic state of affairs? The authorities are getting away year after year with no accountability, no punitive action, no complaints filed, no arrests done. It seems as if it is nobody's business to ensure that lives are protected during the monsoons in Mumbai. Remember, this is a city that has a huge space crunch. People are desperate for a roof over their heads. It is but natural that some amount of illegal structures will come up because people need shelter. But where is the BMC? Why is it missing in action in identifying these structures, in moving people out of those precarious buildings, which anybody can tell will collapse with the first shower of monsoon? And we are not talking about a tornado or a cyclone. We are talking about the first seasonal rains that have caused lives that have caused people to die, and this is not acceptable. You have little children having buildings collapsing on them, caught off guard, probably in their sleep at times, and lives snuffed out of them within minutes. So how exactly is a system functioning if you do not have a system that can protect the citizens from the devastating impact of seasonal rains, if you do not have taxpayers' money being used for basic safety of the citizens? Where is it going really if it is not being used to create infrastructure for the citizenry to have a safe and secure life in the city of Mumbai? Those are the questions we are raising here, viewers. Let me welcome Mr. Balchandra Shirsat, spokesperson of Maharashtra BJP, Krishna Hegre, leader of the Shiv Sena, and Chandrashekhar Prabhu, urban planner and former president of Mahada. Before I go across to the politicians, Mr. Prabhu, first of all, welcome to all of you and thanks for joining us. Chandrashekhar Prabhu, I want to understand from you that, now let's get into the specifics. Here is a city that has something called the Brimstone or the Brihan Mumbai Stormwater Disposal Project that is lying unfinished for 15 years. So clearly there is criminal neglect somewhere. Clearly there is somebody responsible who must be made answerable and accountable for this criminal neglect. Why is a project sanctioned? It misses deadline after deadline. It's been 15 years. Why is it not a matter of urgency when lives are being lost, Mr. Prabhu?
I will come to Brimstone, but before I come to Brimstone, I must talk about the incident that happened yesterday night. People's lives have been lost, and landslides are being seen very regularly. Now you must understand that Mumbai, though it's an island, it is a part of the Western Ghats, and most of the hills in Mumbai, whether Malabar Hills, whether Nepean Road, whether the other hills in Vikhroli, in Chembur, all the hills are extremely fragile. So the town planning and urban planning norms very clearly mentions that hillside and hill slopes and hilltops are sacrosanct, and you do not permit constructions on hill slopes and hillsides. However, over a period of years, it has been the hilltops which have been cornered by the land sharks, and primest of the plots in Mumbai are the hilltops. When Malabar hilltop is overloaded with buildings, what happens is actually what happened near Kemp's Corner, where a whole part of hill just came down. It took 7 to 8 months, I think about a year for the municipal corporation to rectify it. And a huge piece of road also went. Not just that, near Haji Ali, an entire portion of Malabar Hills came down and the building had to be vacated. And even today, it's been more than 10 years, the building has not been reconstructed. So nature has been giving us warnings time and again with regard to landslide, saying that this is a fragile zone and you can't tamper with nature. You can't tamper with hilltops and hill slopes. You can't tamper with no development zone.
But the topography,
Despite that,
Mr. Prabhu, is
greed-
known to everyone, isn't it? The question is, why are these constructions allowed in those vulnerable spots?
No,
I mean,
that's
the construct
because
of the city, the layout of the city, the natural landscape that you're talking about is known to people. The question is, why are these structures being allowed in those spots where they are
the
most
development
vulnerable for a collapse?
Because the development plan permits so. And here there were slums. You see, there are slums on the hill slope, and you need to have a retaining wall. Otherwise, due to the fragility of the hill, when it rains most, there is bound to be a landslide. We have already identified landslide prone areas. Now coming to Brimstow Ward, it's been 25 years, not 15 years that Brimstow Ward has been spoken about. And every time the goals are changed and the goalposts are changed. And every time there are some new set of norms and new set of tenders coming in. The net result is the Brimstow Ward doesn't get completed. I know, for instance, in an area very near to this landslide, in Ghatkopar, between Chembur and Vikhroli, where both the landslides have happened, there is a Brimstow Ward has been sanctioned, the money has been sanctioned, the line has to be laid, but it's not being laid because of some reason or the other. Sometimes they talk that it is CRZ, sometimes they talk that it is marshy lands, sometimes the state blames the center for not giving the permission, the center in turn blames the state for not doing their work. Net result is nothing happens. That's unfortunate.
Yes, that's the kind of blame game, Mr. Prabhu, which we have reported even in the last case in Malad. It was a sorry state of affairs where nobody could be held responsible. The BMC said this is collector's land. The district collector said that they have already issued notices. Beyond that, it is not their jurisdiction. So oftentimes, Krishna Hegre, if I can bring you on this, it gets entangled in this sort of a bureaucratic tangle which has got nothing to do. I mean, the common man has got nothing to do and nothing to understand about these jurisdiction issues. They want basic safety. So your government in Maharashtra has failed to provide safety to its citizens. How can you have so many people dying in a single day? This shows that there was no monsoon preparedness worth its salt in Mumbai.
Afrida, I beg to differ with you on this for the simple reason that we have to understand that a metropolis city like Mumbai, with a population of around 1.50 crore people, and if you look at the kind of filth which is thrown out, the garbage which is thrown out, the water supply which is required for 1.5 crore people, and all the other facilities, the BMC is doing a good job by providing on a day-to-day basis for 365 days all facilities to the people of Mumbai. Whether it is the rich or whether it is the poor, the BMC is working day and night for that. One thing we have to understand that day before yesterday, there was...
But it is failing to identify dilapidated structures, sir. It is failing to identify those buildings which are likely to collapse. Isn't that the first most important thing, that you protect lives? People who are living within the city's bounds, their lives need to be protected, sir. What good job is the BMC doing?
It is just 1.20 crores. He has just increased Mumbai's population by 20%.
No, there are a lot of, Mr. Prabhu, there is a lot of influx as well.
There is no influx.
It is not only the people who are living in the Mumbai, but if you look at the people traveling from out of Mumbai, from all over India into Mumbai, and you take the population, we have to cater to those people as well.
The municipal corporation.
So I'm looking at a tentative figure of 1.5 crores.
Let Mr. Hegre finish his point, sir. I'm coming back to you. Mr. Hegre, continue.
please let me speak. That is, the population is an important bit. But what I'm trying to say is, whether it is the Brimstow Ward, whether it is the Vaitarna water supply chain, whether it was the desalinization of seawater, Uddhav Ji Thackeray, our honorable CM, has come forward with all these things. Just in the last assembly, we had the desalinization of seawater, which has to supply water to Mumbai and to the Mumbaikars, which was sanctioned, and the budget was passed for that. I must admit that what happened was extremely unfortunate. That 25
on
people
paper, everything is great, Mr. Hegre. On paper, you have a budget allocation of over 5,000 crore for stormwater drains. But where are those funds being utilized? That is the question. I mean, in terms of having everything planned and allocated, maybe Uddhav Thackeray is doing a great job, but what matters for us is lives of people that are being lost with an alarming regularity. All the claims that have been made, sir, whether it is desilting, whether it is Mithi River cleanup, nothing is yielding positive results because you still have people dying because of this. Are you only blaming it on the population explosion? Are you saying that the city is not able to sustain this kind of population? What is the solution then?
See, the solution is a constructive work by all departments. Now, as Mr. Prabhu rightly pointed out, there is some people living on the collector's land, some people on the BMC land. There is an issue among departments. Now, when the earlier government was there, you had authorized that slums till 2000 will be regularized. Now, we cannot tell the people when the state government before this has passed that regularity for people living up to 2000, that now you are illegal and we will get you out of the way. What we have to do is we have to provide for the people who come into Mumbai or who are living in Mumbai. And I think the BMC is doing a good job. There are unfortunate incidents like day before yesterday. I'm extremely sorry to say that 25 lives should not have been lost. But we have to understand that this is a natural calamity. It is a natural calamity and it could happen anywhere.
No, I'm sorry. We cannot simply accept this dismissal saying this is nature's fury. Sir, this is seasonal rains. And it's not even a cyclone or a tornado or any such massive natural disaster. God forbid we face one. But even with the first shower of monsoon rains, this happened. People fall into manholes, trees fall on people. I mean, of course, there are a number of those accidents that happen. But when you have these open manholes, when you have these drains, drain water washing off little children, I'm sure you are aware of those cases. So let's not say that the BMC has done a stellar job here. I want to bring in Mr. Balchandra Chirsat as well. Please respond to what Mr. Hegre said, that this is not just the current regime failing on all fronts. The previous government, previous years, during the BJP's time as well, it was the same story. What is the solution, Mr. Chirsat?
See, municipal corporation is governed for last 25 years by Shiv Sena. And in last 25 years, as Mr. Prabhu rightly said, that Brimstow report has been tabled in 1994. So now it is almost more than 27 years for the Brimstow report and its implementation. BMC has already spent more
Okay, I think we have some difficulty hearing you, Mr. Chirsat. I will have to connect you on the phone. Please bear with me because the viewers will not be able to hear what you're saying. Okay, I want to go back to Mr. Prabhu for a bit because we have to understand this, that the number of studies have been done on the reasons why Mumbai faces this. Mr. Prabhu, if you have accessed the CAG report, it's there in the public domain that, the shortfall in terms of, for instance, the floodgates provided in the city, only 3 out of the 45 outfalls in drain exist. The CAG report states that the floodgates have been provided in only 3 of the 45 outfalls. So, even in basic infrastructure, in managing the sewage, managing the drainage, or wastage disposal, there are certain systemic issues here owing to which, this waterlogging happens, and then, of course, this helplessness that the BMC pleads every year.
You see, waterlogging is an issue which we have been discussing. I mean, I've been coming on mirror now for at least 8 years. Every time the water logs, and every time we are called, and every time we say the same thing. Now the issue is very simple. The issue can be divided into 4 separate parts. One is the existing infrastructure that exists cater to certain amount of water which it can take. If the rain is within that limit, then the existing infrastructure should take care of the water and there should be no flooding. If that doesn't happen, that means the infrastructure has not been properly taken care of. That is number 1. Number 2 is creation of new infrastructure where there are different plans like Brimstoward have been done. There is shoddy implementation of creation of infrastructure. There, who is responsible? Everyone says that infrastructure is being implemented, money is being spent, but results are not seen. That is number 2. Number 3 is the planning itself. I mean, the development plan, whenever it is done, the hillside and the hill slopes ought to be kept sacrosanct. You have to take a study of the hill slopes. You have to find out what portion is fragile, where people are living, where there is a likelihood of the landslides happening. You must warn them before the monsoon. You must build retaining walls. No such exercise in planning has been done. And 4th, an overall master plan for the city from the point of view of rains. You see, rains are not new. Rains have been there for 200 years, 300 years. And every time we say that in the last 10 years, this is the highest rainfall. But we know that that kind of rainfall is coming. So when you know that the rainfall is going to be all that high, you know that sometimes there are going to be cloudbursts, and at a spot the rainfall is going to be much more than what the system can take. You have to provide for it. Like we had given 8 years ago, 10 years ago, time and again we have given solutions that wherever there is a possibility where the water floods, underground there could be reservoirs created, and flooding water can go to those reservoirs and the surplus water can be thrown into the sea.
Well, so those systemic changes must be done immediately, sir, because the Bombay High Court has come down sternly saying that it is absolutely not acceptable that you have people dying because of collapsing structures. Whatever be the reason, it needs to be identified and fixed, because here is a case where you have young children. 4 children died today in Mumbai. What was their fault? That the only fault, of course, was that they live in this city, which, like the politicians here are saying, is bursting in its seams. It's difficult to sustain a population like this. Mr. Shirsat, do you agree with that logic? That here you have a situation of a city that is simply not able to sustain the volume of people and the wastage generated, perhaps. Mr. Aditya Thackeray says this is not the time to politicize, but somewhere the leadership must come together as well. Regime after regime, it's been the same.
So I definitely agree with Mr. Chandrashekhar Prabhu. The Brimstoward report has been tabled in 1994, almost 26 years back, and not less than 37,500 crores rupees spent on Brimstoward. But whenever completing any work, it is always done in piecemeal work. The integrated approach to the complete Nala drainage system is never taken. तुमको जो पसंद वही काम करेंगे. Contractor says इतना टुकड़ा अच्छा है, मैं काम करता हूँ. So contractors are deciding which part is to be done and which part is not to be done. And then when the integrated approach to the system is not there, definitely the flooding is taking place every year. Secondly, the landslide is something common with any hilly area. And to avoid this landslide, as Mr. Prabhu rightly said, there are retaining walls to be constructed. Let me bring to your notice that 100 crore rupees were sanctioned for retaining walls in all hill area in eastern suburb and western suburb. But when the government changed, this 100 crore rupees disappeared from the budget, and in last 2 years budget, not a single rupee has been given for the retaining wall reconstruction wherever required, wherever collapse. So in Bhandup,
Okay,
and
let
Vikhroli-
Mr. Hegre respond to that.
Afrida, first of all, I am very shocked at my honorable friend
Okay.
Mr. Shirshadji's claims. The BJP was with the Shiv Sena for 30 years in the BMC. Mr. Sirsat himself was the Improvement Committee chairman, which controls development work in Mumbai. He has been a senior corporator and now is part of the standing committee. And these words coming from his mouth that this was not done and that was not done is not very nice, because he should be individually responsible, apart from his party, for what is happening. He, instead of passing the buck, I must bring to your notice, now his government was there for the last 5 years in Maharashtra. Just in 2019, there were 182 deaths during the regime of Mr. Devendra Fadnavis in Maharashtra, where 182 people lost their lives in Maharashtra due to landslides. Mr. Sirsat will not say
Okay, let
anything about
Mr.
this.
Sirsat respond. I need to close this show on this. There is always this, the blame game among parties happening, but I have to give Mr. Sirsat the right to respond. That you were singularly responsible for taking care of certain things, so you cannot now shift the blame. Go ahead.
Let me bring to your notice, on the hilltop, construction is not allowed, which is done by all Shiv Sena. Yes, I'm telling that. Which is done on the collector land, forest land, which belongs to the state by Shiv Sena, slum lords and slum dadas. And this construction, illegal construction, still should be protected by the state government. Retaining wall is not constructed by municipal corporation. Mr. Hegde, you are not aware about corporation working. That retaining wall has to be constructed by the state government, for which single naya rupee is not given in last 2 years.
So that is the issue. So once again, we are back to square one. This has become once again an issue of jurisdiction, whether the state government and the district authorities will take note of these issues, or whether it is the civic body and the BMC's responsibility. This needs to be sorted out once and for all. I'm sorry, we cannot have people dying only because the BMC and the state government has not been able to decide who takes care of what and who is responsible for what. End of the day, the fact of the matter is that now you have a situation where no heads are rolling, nobody is paying for these lapses, only the blame game. And this time again, unfortunately, that is what we see happening. 25 people died today alone. This is a city of high rises and skyscrapers on one hand. Look at the irony. The facade of Mumbai actually cracks up every monsoon. I thank all my guests for joining us today. Mr. Bhalchandra Sirsat, Mr. Krishna Hegre and Chandrashekhar Prabhu. Thanks so much for joining us on the Sunday edition of the Urban Debate.